it comes to our work, when it comes to the people we spend most of our time together, at our teams, at work, and how does that look like with our leaders? My name is Candy Calderon. I am a brain health professional, holistic health coach, and I have 10 years of experience working with organizations doing in-person virtual wellness development programs for their teams, but also for individuals. And from those 10 years, I also have 10 more years of experience in corporate, which means that I have a pretty good idea what it feels like to be on the other side. And with my experience in corporate, I realized that sometimes we are not heard, we are not seen, and sometimes we are numbers. And we want to change that, especially how does that look like when you have a background like we do, when our heritage is sometimes used against us and not in our favor, when being vocal about our challenges is stigmatized, is used against promotions, against your future, and when we carry with us the trauma of being people of color, child of immigrants, first generation, second generation, and we're not really used to being open and vocal about those challenges. I have not only the experience of working in corporate and in my field of brain health and the wellness industry, I'm also a person who, with that experience, high depression and still kept functioning. And nobody could have thought that I was experiencing depression because we're going to talk about it. How does that look like when you're Latina and you're not really allowed to speak about it? But before we dive into our conversation today, I want to do an exercise because it's so exciting to be here in New Orleans, isn't it? It is. I mean, there's a vibe that I cannot explain, but I know we've been interacting with so many new people. We've been gathering the energy, good or bad, in the middle. So today has been a long day as well, so I want to do an exercise to help us just release all of that energy and start anew. So let's stand up, and let's do the following. I want you to start doing this, right? With your hands, let's activate our energy. Let's start putting in our hands every thought that is not serving us, everything that is holding us back. Maybe that thought about a person that you wanted to approach in this convention, and you haven't had the courage to do that. Something that you're bringing with you from work. Real good. Feel the heat in your hands. And when I tell you, I want you to release to the air, not to me, don't release it to me, to the air. And I want you to do a really big exhale that we all hear it, like, but to the air, okay? So let's do that. Okay, every bad thought, everything that is holding us back, the burger that we ate last night, the churros, whatever. 1, then point it to the air. 2, 3. How did that feel? Do you feel good? Okay, now, good. I always like to do that exercise because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and I think addressing our humanity is so important. We get nervous. Like, I am so nervous to be up here, like, talking to you, and I do this for a living. I'm a keynote speaker. My passion is to serve through my mission, which is brain health, mental health, and prevention instead of reaction when it comes to my people. You are my people, right? Prevent instead of react. I want to do this for you as well. Please scan this code because I want you to get not only the Cliff Notes, but I'm also sending you some of my best strategies so you can implement at work, but also for yourself. It's so important that I want you to walk out of here with actionable steps, okay? Now, why mental health matters at work? Because we know it matters and it should matter when at a personal level, but at work. It has never been so important to address this with our leaders, because when our leaders prioritize our well-being, the whole company culture shifts. We benefit from that. And when we have mindful leaders, we can have positive transformation. But that sounds still very, it's pretty, but it still is not grounded enough. But before I ground this topic, I want to take it back and reverse engineer why it should matter. Now, I couldn't be doing this without asking you, how do you feel today? From a 1 to 5, who feels like a 5 by show of hands? Great, love it. Okay, a 4. Okay. Who feels like a 3? Okay, yes to being honest, and we're gonna talk about it. Vulnerability is so important. Who feels like a 2? Okay, not so many. And who feels like 1? This is a safe space. Nobody's gonna judge you. Okay, good. I love to see that because we kept it between 3 and 5. That's great. Hopefully by the end of this presentation and at the end of our conversation, this is not a monologue. You can interrupt me anytime you have a question. And same thing for people tuning in online. Feel free to drop your questions in the comments, and I'll make sure to address them before my time is over. Okay, great. Let's think about numbers. If we think about how many of us are here in the United States, 18.3% of the population in the United States, as per 2020, is estimated to be Latino or Hispanic. Of those, 16% reporting to have a mental illness. That means that's around 10 million people. If we calculate that, that's around more than the number of people who lives in New York City. That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's alarming that so many of us are living with mental illnesses, and still is such a taboo. It still is such a stigma to talk about it. As a community, we have stigmatized so much Latinos. Unfortunately, we feel so ashamed to talk about having or experiencing mental health challenges, mental health illnesses, or having family who have experienced them. And it is a taboo to not only talk about it with your family, but even acknowledge or talk about it loudly. And a lot of that has to do with also lack of knowledge, because sometimes we are experiencing mental health challenges and we don't even know how to recognize them. We are going through a depression and we chalk it up to the ex that we just broke up with. We chalk it up to the boss that maybe yelled at me last night. But we never realize that in reality, I can be going through real depression, panic attacks, schizophrenia, you name it. So many mental health illnesses that we don't know how to identify, and that is scary. I've been talking about this topic even before it was sexy or trendy. Nowadays, and thankfully so, the discourse around mental health, it's become so much better. But being Latina, not only Latina, but being Afro-Latina, we didn't have the space to have this conversation. And I've been for the past 10 years, but even so more, for the past 8 years, being very vocal. This is a snapshot of one of my very first blog posts back in 2017, talking about Latinas and depression and how did that look like for us. And I tapped into other Latina professionals, friends of mine, who also chimed in with their experiences, and we realized, oh, so I'm not alone, I'm not by myself. And it opened my eyes about the importance of having these conversations, not only for Latinas, but also for Latinos. Our men are so afraid of being open at home and at work. As Latinos, our culture wires us to not acknowledge mental health issues as such, rather looking at them as a weakness and with shame. Swipe them under a rug because if you let it be, then maybe things will get better. Newsflash, they don't. When we try to ignore things, they just piled up and they never get better. Now, by show of hands, tell me who have heard something like this or this resonate. When you talk about maybe, don't you dare, but maybe experiencing some type of mental health issues, maybe depression, maybe, mija, ponte a rezar, right? Pídele a Papa Dios que te sane, right? And if you're Dominican like me, the chancleta is coming out too, you know? And la correa and everything. So we just like, calladita me veo más bonita, right? Pray it away for those, who didn't catch that. Ask God to heal you, right? Because tú no tienes nada. You don't have nothing. Pray it away. Or, tú estás loca para estar en un psicólogo. Are you crazy to wanting to look for therapy, seeking therapy, right? When I asked my dad, like, Dad, you know what? I'm feeling a certain type of way. Maybe I should get therapy. Tú estás loca. Tú estás loca. No, ¿verdad que no? So why do you want to go and seek therapy? Only the crazy people go and seek therapy. You're not crazy. Why are you going to, psychologist? Or don't tell anybody. No le cuente a nadie. Don't tell anybody. Don't you dare to tell anybody, because it's also it's shameful for you, but for them, they don't want to be, the parents with the crazy daughter, the crazy kid. And who has heard this? La ropa sucia se lava en casa. The dirty laundry, stays home. And this is what we are carrying with us when it comes to our mental health. This is how many of us grew up, right? By show of hands, who was raised to not acknowledge that you had or experiencing some type of challenge emotionally? Like many of us, right? And there's no shame in that. But we grew up feeling and thinking that we should be ashamed of that. And this is important because when we go to our work, when we escalate the ladder within our career, we bring all of that with us. And sometimes we don't even know it. We don't even realize that we're bringing all of that with us. And it's so hard to unlearn. If you think learning how to love yourself is hard, think about how unlearning all the BS that we were brought up with is. It's very hard, but it's not undoable. It's doable. We can do it. And this is so important because sometimes when we are at work, either as employees or as leaders, we carry all of that, sometimes as victims, but sometimes as perpetrators. Nobody wants to be in that seat and realize, like, oh, I'm perpetuating this cycle where maybe one employee is coming to me and being vulnerable and honest and saying, hey, I'm experiencing, something, I'm feeling a certain kind of way. I think the culture is not how it's supposed to be. And I shamed that team member or employee because I was brought up in a way where being vulnerable about mental health and admitting that something is going on with me emotionally is a weakness. And sometimes people have even been dismissed from work because they were open. And we want to change that. And I really commend everybody, who created this space for us to have this conversation, because hopefully we start creating a shift, and it starts with us. Now, 47% of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic employees reported experiencing poor mental health symptoms related to work. They are often isolated in the workplace due to being underrepresented. A huge part of a healthy mental health state is also community. Feeling like we belong, like we have a place, and when we don't feel celebrated, we sometimes feel just tolerated. It's like, yeah, let's get the quota of the Latinos or the brown or the black, and we don't feel celebrated. And it takes a mental toll on us, and we need to acknowledge and realize that. We feel very alone, and that is a huge part of why so many of us are experiencing mental health challenges. The cost of mental health is too big for us to ignore, especially if you're in a position of power and a position of making a change within your company. And if you have a team, if you're a leader, it's too big to ignore. How it impacts our organization, which it should be a given, but I would like to highlight 3 points that are very important, and me being not only a brain health professional, but also a person who spends months and months creating wellness programs for companies, big companies, so they can address these issues and be preventive instead of proactive. It also comes down to the numbers, right? To the bottom line. It is very expensive. Loss of productivity costs employers on average $150,000 per employee per year. When you analyze that amongst every other employee who's experiencing any type of mental health challenge, it adds up. The turnover, employees experiencing mental health conditions affects the likelihood of them of them not only quitting, but having to be dismissed. So the turnover of your company gets affected. And the culture, which is so important for a thriving mental health environment in our company. Not fostering a healthy mental health at work negatively impacts the culture and standing of your company in leadership. And we hablamos, right? We talk amongst each other, and somebody maybe wants to go into the company or put in a resume, we start talking. And the branding and the standing of your company also suffers when you mistreat your employee and when you don't prioritize their well-being. 30% of US employees experience chronic job-related stress. This is a huge number. And the cost of this number when it comes to money, because of course we need to talk about money because an organization needs to make money, and we have to understand that part. But lack of focus is an epidemic that we're suffering. The brain of our employees is not working properly. Attention, memory loss, interactions with others is costing billions of dollars to corporations. Now, for those of us who still have our child inside and love some Marvel situation, if I ask you as a leader, what will it cost you to not prioritize the mental health of your employees? It will cost you everything. It will cost you everything, not only money, but your company, period, your company in its entirety. And if you need even another reference from movies and sci-fi, I challenge you to make a decision right now, to take a pill. I'm going to matrix you right now. You want to take the blue pill, continue as it is, not prioritizing the mental health of your employees or your teams, or you want to take the red pill and disrupt things and start prioritizing or being more intentional with the initiatives to invest and make your team feel secure, heard, and seen. How many of us are taking the red pill? Yes. Many. That's what I like to see. Okay, so some actionable steps right now, because I want you guys to go with actionable steps that you can start implementing immediately. Not only at work, but also at home, and we're going to discuss some action steps for you personally as well. But when it comes to work and within your organization, know the difference between brain health and mental health as well. A huge part of the work that I do is also creating programs and delivering workshops to help also the brain, the actual organ. There's a difference. Mental health tackles more the emotional part of the mental health, the well-being, whereas brain health works most with the actual organ. And this is important because you cannot have a thriving mental health if your brain, the actual organ, is not thriving. And so many of us are experiencing mental health issues, maybe because we suffer a concussion when we were young. We didn't know that. Maybe parts of our brain are not wired properly, and by optimizing our brain, we might be able to then get up to speed and then help our mental health. Some of us have never even discussed with our doctors about our gut health and the connection between our gut and our mental health and our brain health. It's so important, but we rarely discuss it. So be intentional with prioritizing brain health, not only mental health. Prioritize your team's sleep. We live in a society that glamorizes not sleeping. Like, I'll sleep when I die. Duermo cuando me muera, right? And then we feel like, oh, I'm doing so good because I'm leaving everything in the floor for the company. I'm not even sleeping. And we're proud. We wear that badge like so proudly. And slowly but surely, we're killing ourselves. And then our bosses are applauding us because what time you went to bed yesterday? 3 a.m. and now it's 6 a.m. and you're back here? Yes, go you. That is not right, because who can perform at their best if we are sleep deprived? Nobody. Nobody. And that affects your work and affects your personal life as well. Be open to be vulnerable yourself as a leader. Many team members and employees feel like they cannot be open because you're not open. As a leader, when was the last time you were honest with your team and you sat down and you shared something vulnerable and personal, or had an open door policy where your employees will feel safe to share and not feel like they were going to be punished by it? Be vulnerable yourself, okay? Hire professionals for consistent educational workshops to educate your team. Do not feel like you have to do everything yourself. It's so important to hire professionals who know what they're doing and to create that ecosystem that really supports your team. Revamp your wellness programs. So many organizations have dinosaur wellness programs that really are not realistic anymore, right? That the only thing they're offering is like healthy lunch at the cafeteria. You know, we need something more than that. And then let's revamp these old school wellness programs that are really not impacting your workforce. Work on your soft and people skills. Let's remember to be human again. Even as cliche as that sounds, it's so important to remember to be human again. Proactive versus reactive. Don't wait for a scandal to happen, an employee to sue you, or something bad really in the detriment for a company to happen in order to start thinking and prioritizing the well-being of your teams and employees. Implement mindful manager trainings. So many people are so good in their technical skills and they escalate when it comes to the ladder and the role that they have within companies, but they have no clue when it comes to having human interactions. So let's train these people who are highly, highly talented, but maybe lacking the people and soft skills. Integrate breaks within the workday. Don't grind people down. Allow them to have breaks without feeling like they are neglecting their job. Be crystal clear that one size does not fit all. We are such a beautiful tapestry of different cultures. When we say we're Latinos or Hispanic, please don't put us all in a box. Please do not put us all in a box. We're different. We have different skin color, different heritage, even different religions. So when you're creating wellness programs and thinking about the mental health of your teams, take all of that in consideration and don't think that one size fits all. Community, social well-being, create flexible schedules, especially for those of your employees who are caregivers. So many of us have people that we take care of them and we're penalized for that. Even women, when we carry our babies and then we give birth and then we're like almost forced to go back after we push a baby because love forbid that I cannot afford to not go back, you know? And that is part of the mental health initiatives that we need to take in consideration when we are prioritizing mental health in corporate America. Wellness Wednesdays, empathy circles, you name it. There's so many beautiful ideas that can be implemented. I'm more than open to support any of you if you need more ideas to implement back in your organization. Now a vibe check real quick. How are we doing? Is this resonating? Love it. Good. So now for you, because I want to give you things that also like for you personally, right? Let's work on that. Again, the same thing. I want you to prioritize your brain health and your sleep. Again, please, please, please do not use it as a badge of honor. Like, oh my God, yes, I sleep when I die. I'm team no sleep. Who cares? If you are dead, nobody's going to care. Certainly not your company. So please prioritize your brain health and your sleep. Your rest is your birthright. Don't let anybody else tell you that you need to grind yourself to an early death because you need to be the best employee ever. That doesn't work that way. Stop saying yes when you want to say no. Who's guilty of that? So many of us. Okay, you're my people too. I did not have boundaries. I did not know that word. But ask me how I learned, the hard way. So I hope you don't have to learn the hard way, but yes, learn how to say no instead of yes. Be more mindful of your no's, okay? Not your nose, your nose. So instead of saying yes, say no more often. Move your body. Take care of your gut. Remember what I told you? The relation of your gut and your mental health is so important. An unhealed gut is the foundation for many of the chronic illnesses of our time. So it's so important. The stigmatized mental health, the fact that you're here taking this workshop tells me a lot about the work that you now can do, and we can create a ripple effect to start working in the stigmatizing mental health, especially within our community. And when you're seeking help for yourself, try to find culturally competent professionals that can understand your upbringing, your culture, and when you explain to them that when growing up, la chancleta was tu mejor amiga, right? Because your parents hit you. Like maybe somebody who's not aware of how some Latinos or Hispanic grew up won't understand. And you need to seek culturally competent people to help you when you want to heal. And practice mindfulness. So one of the main triggers of today's mental health issues is, who wanna guess? Just say it out loud. Social media is true, but that's not the one. Stress. Stress is the silent killer. Remember the numbers that I gave you previously about how much is costing companies and organizations? Stress, how much is costing, but it's costing us more on a personal level. So I want to wrap this up, a very short meditation. And if we can dim the lights, and just I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to take a deep breath. A deep breath through your nose. And release through your mouth. And another deep breath. Release through your mouth. And I want you to think about yourself sitting in front of a mirror. And you're saying hi to the 7-year-old version of yourself. And you're telling her or him how loved she or he is. How important he or she is in this world. How you're meant to do big things, or not big things at all, just live your life. How you're going to live a life full of wonder, happiness, challenges, but something that you will have always at the top of your mind is that you are worthy. You are always worthy. You will always be worthy. And you will never let the world break you down. And I want you to extend your arms and to reach to that baby version of you, that kid version of you. Hold their hands and welcome them into your reality and give them a big hug. Because that kid, that baby, is you. That's you today. You are loved. You are worthy. You deserve to be heard. And you matter. You can open your eyes. How did that feel? Good? You feel good? Wonderful. Something real quick before we wrap up and then go to Q&A is that anybody can meditate. Anybody, you see how short that was? Anybody can meditate. 5 minutes, 3 minutes. You don't have to do like a whole Buddha session, right? Don't worry. You can meditate anywhere. The bathroom, your bed. Please do not do it when you're driving. Needless to say. When you're commuting, if you take the train. 3, 7 minutes, something simple, maybe not even music, but if you need a little help, there's so many free guided meditations on YouTube, okay? It will ground you and help you. So I hope that all of you give yourselves the space to meditate and you to sit with yourself and ground yourself anytime you need. Now again, remember to scan this because I want to send you all the strategies and the cliff notes of everything we discussed here and so we can connect. I'm open for questions right now.
Hi, Candy?
Yes.
Over here. My name is Natalie Perez. I'm with Kaiser Permanente, Puerto Riqueña, but love my Dominicanas.
Yes,
and my Costa
girl.
Ricans and all my Central and Latin American people. Thank you for bringing this topic up in terms of destigmatizing. And I really appreciate the activity, the warm activity, because that was, as you can tell, I'm trembling, so it was very emotional for me. I also want to make a comment to the group in that we talk about mental health, but we also don't talk about medication.
Yes.
Support by medication does not mean you're going to be eternally on medication. And I can say for me, I was on medication for almost 20 years, and I am medication-free. And I want to speak to the Latinos in the room. It's okay to say, I'm not okay.
Yes.
And I wish more of you would say it. Ya se acabó. Ya se acabó hiding. There's no more hiding this. It's real and it's prevalent. And we're here to support you.
Yeah.
So thank you for the opportunity. And my question to you, you said, I'm assuming that you actually suffered from, you mentioned that you suffered from depression. What was the turning point for you? Where is it that you kind of made the switch?
When I started making my own money and pay for therapy. That's it, because while I was under my parents' financial, what would I say, constraints, that wasn't even an option. It's some of those phrases are from my own experiences. I really heard them. My dad's like, "Tú no estás loca? Where you?" And then that was my life. Suffering from a high-functioning depression. So many of us here suffer from it, and we're so ashamed to say it. Good grades, I had them. All the boyfriends, I had them. All the school dances, everything, I had them. So nobody would ever believe I was going through the darkest moments of my life. So if I happened to go through that dark hole that I was in and decided to make good of the thoughts I had in my mind, I wouldn't be here today. So I'm so grateful that at some point I started working, making my own money, and I started paying for therapy.
I guess it's off.
Thank you, Natalie, for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for your question.
Hello, Jose Medina from Lowe's,
Hi,
Video
Jose.
Wizard. Hi, how you
Hi.
doing? I'm Tigre Dominicano also
¿Qué
from
lo
el
qué?
barrio. Tranquilo, tú. Part of being Hispanic background, there's two things that we normally don't get to see and embrace is boundaries, right? Like it's just everyone together, conjunto, and there's just, and no being a bad word, right?
Yep.
And something that changes a lot is when you understand things that you say no is because you're saying yes to someone else. So if you say no to that email at 5 p.m. on a Friday, you're saying yes to your family or your kids, right? So
Yes.
can you add a little bit more context on the importance of boundaries in mental health, specifically for us as Hispanics, since boundaries is something that we don't raise or we're not aware of, and no is a bad word within our community normally.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think so many of us can relate. I feel that the lack of awareness or even owning our no's, starting with, or go and hug your tia, go and hug your tío. And we're like, I don't want to hug anybody. And your mom's like, go and hug them. And then you didn't have any authority over your own body because they made you hug people you didn't want to hug. They made you do things you didn't want to do because it's like, I said so, right? Our parents' word was like law. And so we really grew up without boundaries, sharing beds. It's like, so yes, we all grew up, and boundaries is a very fairly new word, although for a long time we've been playing with the idea, what would it look like if I really reinforce what I want to do? And you said something very beautiful is when I say no to somebody else, I'm saying yes to me, because to me, a no is a letter of self-love to myself. And please learn to not take no, not personally. Sometimes it's just like you said, no is because I need to spend time with my family. So when we take our ego out of the equation, we are more open to receive no's, but we're also more open to give them because we are not the bad person because I said no. It's just self-preservation, self-love, and reinforcing my boundaries. So remember, when you say no, it is a big love letter to yourself. Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Cesar Gonzalez from Lowe's Home Improvement.
Hi, Cesar.
Don't really have a question, but I wanted to make a comment about the topic. So thank you for talking about it today. But I just wanted to confirm that, there's so much need out there in the world, and there's so much natural stress on the job. So I always tell my leaders, hey, guys, watch how you communicate, how you coach, make sure that you're listening and asking questions. And sometimes all you got to do is ask that one question. Hey, how are you doing? And they'll open up. So I just wanted to thank you for that, but we have a coaching model that we use, and that question specifically in there because sometimes they're not performing, and it's not because of anything related to work, it's something personal.
Yeah.
So just wanted to call that out.
Thank you for sharing that. And that goes back to being vulnerable yourself. Remember, one of the actionable steps I gave you as a leader and to foster like good mental health within your communities is to be open yourself. Because if you're not open, your team members and your employees won't feel safe being open themselves, right? So thank you for sharing that.
Hi, Alessandra Calderon. We have the same last
Hola,
name.
prima.
I'm from Stanley Black & Decker, but my question is, it relates to neuroplasticity. And so right now I'm reading the book, How the Brain Changes Itself by Norman Dodge. And basically how the brain can rewire itself after tragedy, after a stroke, things like that. You talk about brain health, maintaining optimal brain functionality. So my question is, what strategies and practices do you do every day aside from sleep, nutrition, meditation to ensure your optimal brain health?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Do you guys have one more hour? No, I'm just joking. I'm so passionate about this topic because obviously being a brain health professional and one of my mentors, Dr. Daniel Amen, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's such an eminence. And something that he taught me very early on is about the importance, and then I teach this to all my clients and the programs that I develop for the companies I work with. It's having this small brain exercises that compounded really add up. For example, just to give you one, because remember, our brain is an organ, arguably the most important organ. And the same way we go to the gym to exercise our body, we should also be exercising our brain before cognitive decline happens. And many of us start having symptoms 20, 25, 30 years in advance. And we have time. Neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to heal itself, right? And a huge part of that is doing the brain exercises. For example, how many of you here are lefties? Raise your hand. And obviously the rest, you're righties, right? So with your non-dominant hand, I want you, a good exercise is go home and start brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. What that will do is that will challenge your brain to use different areas of your brain that you typically don't use because you're using your dominant hand and you almost do it by default. You're not challenging your brain. And by using your non-dominant hand, so you're challenging and using different areas of your brain, and that's creating new neural pathways in your brain, and that means that you're exercising your brain. And that can be brushing your teeth, that can be writing. Have you tried writing with your non-dominant hand? Horrible, horrible. But that is a good exercise, though, and it's fun. You can also do puzzles. Sudoku, who here loves Sudoku? I love Sudoku, crosswords. My grandma used to love crosswords. Brush your hair with your non-dominant hand. That's on the top of my head. And all of those are doable, fun, and things you can do at home and for free. I hope that gave you some ideas. We have another question here. Oh,
I have a question from our virtual audience, and this will be our last question as well. This question is from Carla Walker, who is actually our HR at HACER. She would like to know, most employers are concentrated on getting the job done at all costs. How would you advise an employee to approach their direct report related to burnout, stress, or anxiety?
Yeah. I know it's easier said than done to say, hey, just go to HR, because we know that sometimes that comes back to hurt us when sometimes we're open and we go to HR and we let them know a situation that might be affecting not only our mental health, but the culture in itself. But that's where community comes in, right? And then you're feeling safe with your coworkers and tapping into and grounding yourself and then asking each other, hey, are you maybe experiencing something similar? And not waiting for a group to come in and say, hey, we're having similar experiences, because your individuality also matters. You know, being open and document everything also that's going on, but at the end of the day, be open with what's going on and document and present that and elevate the case so you can be heard. But also just know that your coworkers and your team ideally will have your back, because a situation that harms one of you harms the rest. And at the end of the day, we don't want to feel like we're numbers and that we're just, a part of the bottom line. So having community, tapping into your team members is very important when it comes to raising awareness of things, unjust things that might be happening within the organization. I am open to all your questions, feedback. I would love to connect with all of you. You can find me, that's my email, on LinkedIn. I know there's so many questions, but to be respectful with the next session, I am just so happy to be here. I hope you learned something. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Candy Calderon. Our last session of the program, The Habits of Highly Accomplished Latinx Executives, starts now. Please welcome to the stage the moderator of today's session, President and Principal of DNI, MD, Monica Diaz.